Hello and welcome back to the World Leader Leaderboard, the show where we tell you who's winning and losing every week. This week I'm joined by Rory.
Hello.
And Zach.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Very well.
Very well.
Yeah.
Good.
Just the two of
Have
us.
we ever said no to
It
this?
would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think we need to maybe work on that.
It's not very British to actually answer that question.
True.
A lot of podcasts try and do a sort of banter section at the start, but I feel like
We just go straight into a brick wall with how you doing. Everyone says yep, and then we move on. The leaderboard currently looks a little bit like this, but in today's episode we'll be moving one person up, one person down, and adding 3 new people to the board. 1 audience suggestion, 1 winner, and 1 loser. So a lot to look forward to, and some pretty rogue suggestions of new people, I would say. So it's going to be an interesting one. Before we get going though, if you want to go at ranking people and telling us who you think is the most important, then you should vote in our world's most influential person survey. This is the second time we have run this poll. Last year, Donald Trump came out on top. And it was an interesting set of results that we shared in a video, which we'll link in the description, and also in a copy of Too Long. We're doing essentially the same thing again this year. We're looking for you to help us rank the 25 most influential people in 2026. And that will be shared again in a video and in next March's copy of Too Long. So if you want to have your say, if you want to cast your vote for the world's most influential people, then click the link in the description and have a vote in the survey. With that said, let's start with our winners this week. Zach, you can go first. Who is your winner of the week?
My winner of the week is Argentina's president, Javier Milei. And I think the reason for his winner this week is because today, we're recording this on Wednesday, so today Argentina's Chamber of Deputies are taking their seats. And as sort of viewers of TLDR Global might know, Milei's party, La Libertad Avanza, obviously performed quite well at the midterms at the end of October. But in even more good news for Milei, over the past couple of weeks, the main opposition bloc, the Peronists, have fractured, and a couple of deputies have basically split off to form their own group. And he has been able to get a couple of other MPs from basically other right-wing parties to defect to his party, which means that today, and this was not what we thought was going to happen at the midterms, his party is actually the largest party in Congress. And that's a pretty massive win for him. That gives him some real power to get more of his economic reforms through, right? Because he's made it pretty clear that in the next couple of years, he basically just wants to continue full steam ahead with his sort of program of economic liberalization. But also, I think it's worth noting that there's been 2 other things that are pretty good for him at the moment. And the first is that the economic data that's come out most recently suggests that the Argentine economy is actually doing okay. So I think most importantly, the data for Q3 suggests that it was growing by about 0.5% quarter on quarter, which is pretty good annualized rate. It's not amazing, but I think importantly, it means that talk of a recession is clearly overblown. And there was some chat about recession a couple of months ago because Argentina has this little monthly GDP indicator. But we have it in the UK. We do monthly GDP statistics, and for a couple of months that had come in negative. And then the final thing is that his poll numbers are up. So they're not to the sort of mythical highs that he began with, right?
Yeah.
I remember we used to do those videos where he'd be in sort of 70%.
Who's the most popular man in the world?
Apparently so. But they're still, and it depends which pollster you ask, right? They're still a little bit below even. So his net approval rating is sort of -10. But the most recent data suggests that it's up a couple of points where it was last month.
Okay.
So all in all, I think pretty great result for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Milei moving up from the positive section to the very positive section, joining a growing roster of people at the top of the board there.
Yes.
Obviously, Milei was able to do a fair amount of reform even without this kind of majority in the Chamber of Deputies. I know he had various parties that kind of went along with him because he had the kind of momentum of the public and people wanted to kind of support that, I suppose, in Parliament. But with kind of a more of a solid official majority now, what changes should we expect from Milei? Should we expect him to go full steam ahead with his economic chainsawing or not?
So I think to be clear, he doesn't actually have a majority, he has a plurality, right? So he has I think around 100 seats in basically a 300 seat chamber.
Okay.
Right. 250 seat chamber.
Fairly close.
Yeah, pretty close. I think importantly, that means he has what's called a blocking minority.
Yes.
Which means he needed basically a third of seats to be able to wield his presidential veto effectively, because before he could veto legislation proposed by the opposition, but they could then overturn it if they could find a 2/3 majority to overturn his presidential veto. So that will give him a little bit more power. But yeah, I think that you should expect to see sort of more of the same. Although I would gently note that like no one really quite knows what the program will look like. At least I don't. But I think in some senses he has scaled down his ambitions. I think that's most obvious in his peso policy. So the
blue rate. We're not talking about the blue rate
Yeah, you
again.
love it. I know you love it. But
I've read this bit of script about 16 times.
But originally, well, actually, before he even took office, right, he was talking about dollarizing.
Yes.
He was talking about ditching the peso entirely, and then people thought he was going to at least move to a free floating peso, right, where he just let the market decide its value. That would probably, in practice, mean accepting a devaluation of the peso, which would be unpopular with Argentinian households who are net importers. But it now looks like he's going to continue to manage the peso, basically, right? So the Argentinian government will continue to basically intervene in markets to keep it within a band, which was agreed as part of their most recent IMF deal. And I think that as tentative evidence suggests that he's not going to be quite as radical as maybe people thought he was going to be a year or two ago. And he's going to be a bit more of a sort of traditional Argentinian right winger. But I think he's also, he's committed to further austerity, for instance. And still basically trying to draw in foreign investment, whatever that sort of takes. But I think basically it's a bit of a scaling back from the rhetoric we saw ahead of the 2023 election and in 2024. But I mean, obviously still pretty dramatic given how much it's achieved so far.
Rory, what do you make of this? I know South America is an area of interest for you.
Yeah, but weirdly, Argentina doesn't
it's a very efficient distribution of labour. Rory does all of them. And I
was thinking, I mean, this is sort of separate from the economic stuff, but South America in general is getting more right wing, especially the bit around Argentina. Chile is probably going to have a very right-wing president soon enough, and Bolivia has gone sort of right-wing now. So his sort of neighborhood is looking a bit more
as well.
Yeah, who knows what will happen in Venezuela, but his neighborhood is looking a bit more familiar to him, I suppose. When he came into office, it was a lot more left-wing. He was sort of a bit of an outlier. Didn't get on with many people.
Yeah, although that's somewhere he toned things down, right? During the election, he was sort of constantly dissing all the lefties. He was.
Lula especially.
Yeah, but then actually there was a sort of quiet rapprochement. They didn't actually end up sparring as much as sort of people thought. I mean, that was actually most obviously true in Milei's China policy, right? He spent the campaign attacking them as communists and all that sort of thing, and then once he got into power, pursued a pretty sort of open policy with China. So I think in quite a lot of ways, Milei has turned out to be. I think you shouldn't. At the same time, you shouldn't understate quite how dramatic a transformation of the Argentinian economy he has achieved. But I think in practice, he's turned out to be more pragmatic, let's say, than I think people thought he would be in 2023. I mean, especially last year, right? You were asking how did he get all those things through, despite the fact that he had very little representation in Congress. It was because he was actually surprisingly good at cooperating with other parties, and that obviously involved making the occasional concession. But he was very good at that.
Yeah. Okay, he is now at the top of the board, sat right next door to Lula at the top. Rory, who is your winner this week?
My winner of the week is a new addition, and I believe it's someone the audience has, or sort of someone the audience has requested previously that we've never added, but it is Pope Leo the 14th.
Oh,
I think they requested
the previous Pope,
Francis, and I think we said no because it was quite close to the end and didn't seem very wise. But Pope Leo is a youthful 70 now, and he's just gone on his first sort of foreign tour. He spent 6 days going through Turkey and Lebanon, and it's his. I mean, he's obviously, had a big profile before then, but this is sort of his, I guess, debut on the world stage outside of the Vatican and Italy. So he went to Turkey, did a lot of stuff there, and then to Lebanon, which was quite a sort of a big visit, because previous popes have been there. Pope Francis, I think, wanted to visit there, wasn't able to because of instability. But now Leo has managed to go there. He delivered a mass in front of like 150,000 people, which is kind of crazy. I don't really know how that works, but he's also used this sort of tour to be quite forceful in calling for sort of religious toleration and peace, and all the things that you sort of need, or that region needs especially. But I think the visits sort of demonstrated the power that having a pope who is at sort of the start of their papacy, and is, I know I sort of joked about him being a youthful 70, but it is relatively youthful, and he is sprightly. Yeah. I think it's
a new 60.
It's a really underrated thing that he is also the first English-speaking pope in centuries. He's also a Spanish speaker because he spent years, decades even in Peru, I think. So he's got strong ties to the Anglophone world, really strong ties to Latin America. That covers like a lot of the Catholic population and the world population. So I think he's sort of able to tap into a lot of different audiences. And there was these amazing photos from Lebanon when he was there. You had there's this like scout movement in Lebanon, which is set up by Hezbollah, and you had these young Boy Scouts like waving posters of the Pope, but on their uniform they had little patches of Ayatollah Khomeini on, and it's this sort of like juxtaposition. But I suppose it's
quite warming in a way, isn't it?
It's that religious sort of toleration he was talking about. And so
obviously
so
Ali Khomeini also very big on that.
So I think it's been a good sort of debut tour for him, and I'm happy to add him to the board and hopefully please the audience with it.
There we go, being added to the lightly positive section as a new addition. Obviously, at the beginning of the episode, we briefly discussed our ranking of the most influential people. The Pope is one of the people on that list, and without giving away how you are both going to rank the Pope, I'm curious how influential in the modern era you think these kind of things are. Like, does the Pope showing up in these places and speaking about tolerance and getting children to hold up Pope pictures, does that make a difference? I mean, it's obviously impactful in some way, but like, is it a meaningful impact, do you think? Kind of aimed at both of you.
Yeah, I think there is obviously limits to that, because he can, I mean, he did say, he talked about sort of Israel-Palestine. He said, a solution requires a Palestinian state. And him saying that is not going to make Netanyahu go, all right, fair enough,
sure,
we'll do it. But I do think there is, having someone who does sort of seem to be above politics and sort of not, that there is a national territory, the Vatican, but he is sort of supranational, I suppose. So I think there is sort of power and influence in that. But I do think the thing I said earlier about his sort of English speaking and American roots will increase his influence. He's already spoken out against Trump's migration policy. And what was the other thing he said? Oh, he's basically said to Trump, don't go to war with Venezuela, try and pursue dialogue. And again, Trump's not going to just follow those orders.
No.
But it is, I think it is slightly more powerful than having, another random world leader or opposition politician saying those things. But it's not like a easy solution.
Sure.
I do also think he probably has a bit more sway, because I think quite a lot of Western right-wingers, including the Trump administration, want to present as Christian, as sort of defenders of the Christian. Well, maybe that's too strong, but at least like sort of Christian adjacent or defenders of Judeo-Christian culture.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the sort of Ben Shapiro.
So they don't want to come out against the Pope.
Yeah, you do see that occasionally, right? Like I remember, I can't remember if it was Gaza, when one of the popes, maybe it was Francis, was having a go, and you could see that, and JD Vance was spatting with him on Twitter, I think.
Yeah, because he killed the last pope.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly, yeah. But you could see that there was a limit to how stinging JD Vance could be, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, Rory Stewart gets, all... whatever it is. Yeah, rival podcast. They get all 4 barrels. But then obviously the Pope, JD Vance, had to be politer than usual.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I do think that basically because lots of Western right wingers want to present as somehow like Christian adjacent, that does give them a bit more sway.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Pope could end up being a big deal.
I can't remember.
It's been a few thousand years.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I can't remember putting him on my influential list, but I think he should be there.
You think he should be in the top 25?
Yeah, I reckon so. I think you forget. I mean, we're always talking about 150,000 people. You just forget how many people do take, basically how many Catholics there are out there, right? Or Christians more generally, and how many people do take their cues from...
More than a billion Catholics?
I think so, yeah. And yeah, I think that's right. That might be Christians in total. Though.
Definitely more than
There's a lot
Christians.
Though. Yeah.
Okay. Those are our winners this week. Let's move on to our next segment, the mini game.
Yay!
Oh,
You're playing
about this.
Come on.
Whoa! Okay, so a couple months ago, we announced that we had made a magnet set of the World Leader Leaderboard, which involves all of the faces. Well, not all of them. A lot of the faces that you see on the board.
Actually, someone recommended in the comments. This is good.
That you interrupt.
You're doing really good. You're doing really good.
We announced that we've made magnets featuring a whole bunch of the world leaders, so you at home can make your own World Leader Leaderboard on your fridge, which is great fun. It's a good Christmas gift.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want a magnet with?
I have George Ramaphosa on my fridge.
Do you actually?
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
That's like showing off his bias. There we go. Yeah.
It's a real pro Ramaphosa.
Yeah, it's the only one. I don't have anyone else on there.
Ben and Georgina pro Zach Polanski. We got our pro Ramaphosa bias to accommodate for.
So to promote this as part of the discussion around magnets, each week we play a mini game whereby a team member ranks a handful of world leaders based on a different metric to normal. Zach, you are up today. Here's your board. If you pick one of these cards and then hand it back to me, that will decide what your ranking metric is.
So I'm getting random everything.
You're going random everything? Nope.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't see it.
It's just some of them require a different scoring system.
Is this a fact one?
It's an opinion one.
Yeah, I don't like the fact ones.
Okay,
fact ones, you basically either get it right, in which case it's quite boring, or you get it wrong, in which case you look stupid for someone whose job it is to know about politics.
Yeah, that is true.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Do you want to tell people who you have?
I have, fair point. I have Ursula von der Leyen, Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, Friedrich Merz, and Mohammed bin Salman.
And the question is, you're ranking them today. I don't believe you have one of these, but who would you trust most to look after your pet for the weekend?
Can I replace pet with child then?
Yes, fine.
Wow, that's good.
Really shows how you think about your child.
I'm going to go Ursula von der Leyen top. Maybe that's a sort of a gender bias thing, but I think that she just would be the best of... I mean, it's not
the rest are not great.
Not a great list. Oh, goodness. Mohammed bin Salman, I'm tempted to just preemptively put him bottom.
You don't think he'd look after Margot?
I think he has pretty minimal childcare duties.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. How many kids? Do you have a bunch of kids? Any kids?
Good question. I should know the answer to this, but
I feel like he probably has
got a lot of siblings.
He does have a lot of siblings.
I'm looking it up. You keep going.
Although maybe that's unfair.
Putting him at the bottom when you've got like Trump and Putin still to go is
that's true.
Tough.
You know what? I'll take that back.
He does also seem a bit like he looks happy
he's
sometimes.
Nice.
Doesn't he?
I think he's nice.
He has 3 sons, 2 daughters.
I've got to take him off now. He's got 3 sons, 2 daughters. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good going, actually. To be fair,
more than you.
How long are they looking after her for?
Weekend.
Just the whole weekend.
Whole weekend. And I don't think you're allowed to reach out. I think you just got to trust it.
I'm going to go Merz second.
Yeah.
You know,
you're trusting the Germans really.
Yeah, I think they won't make a mistake. They might rage quite a sort of like, you know,
be strict, but
fair.
Yeah.
Like, he's quite just a sort of like solid kid, but I'm not sure it'd be that exciting. Right, I'm going to put Putin bottom, just because I think he'll be preaching revisionist history, and I don't want Margot to come out of those sort of talking points. And then it's a question between
Trump
Putin.
And MBS.
Are they all by themselves?
Yeah, it's just them.
It's just them.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think she'd
in
make
your house. Like they don't have the infrastructure, or maybe not in your house, but it's not like they're in the White House. They don't have the infrastructure. It's them and Margot surviving the weekend.
Or
not.
That is tough. Oh goodness, I think this is a horrible.
The stakes are so much higher now.
I'm actually feeling quite panicked because I'm now feeling, if imagining I have to give Trump my child, be like, for the weekend, please.
Yeah,
I just got children. I know. I actually Mohammed bin Salman has to go down because I I don't know. He does seem like a nice fella, but I don't know, if he'd even.
That's a controversial statement.
Don't want to get Khashoggi'd. But he doesn't. I also think that I don't think he'd have the patience at all. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think if she did anything, I think it'd just be like, okay, fine, I'm leaving. You know what I mean? So I think.
Do you not think Trump would just fall asleep immediately though and leave her unattended?
No, I actually oddly think. Yeah, I'm going to go Trump there. I actually think Trump would do an all right job.
Okay.
I'm actually going to switch Putin and MBS as well.
Whoa, MBS back down to the bottom.
I also think Putin has a familial instinct in him. I'm just projecting. I have no idea why I think this. But I think Putin, basically, I think my child would not die with Putin for a weekend.
But MBS.
But I honestly think there's a good chance. With MBS,
he would just lose interest.
Yeah, he'll just lose interest. You know what I mean? He'll just be like, I can't be bothered with this.
Sure.
And, I don't need to.
Okay, so your top 5 are in what order? Do you want to spin it around?
It's Ursula von der Leyen.
Yeah. Which feels problematic.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, come on. Who's going to beat Ursula von der Leyen? That's true. Friedrich Merz, who, again, would be quite disciplinarian, I reckon, but probably he'd make it through.
Yeah.
Trump, I also think he'd make it through. He'd bumble around. I do think that Trump, just doesn't have it in him to leave a child. Do you know what I mean? Well, maybe that's so unfair.
I don't know. I sort of assume he wasn't that involved in the raising of his young children.
Yeah, but I think he does seem to, take an interest. Whereas MBS, I think you can imagine taking zero interest in,
Trump's a difficult one because he is quite callous and selfish, obviously. Yeah. But equally, he does sometimes, when he's being funny, Trump is a funny guy.
And you see when Musk was bringing his kid around, Trump actually was quite cute about it.
Yeah,
do you remember those things where Musk left his kid and those videos of Trump outside Air Force One just looking after a 2-year-old for no reason. Yeah, I actually think Trump would do an okay job. Putin, I also think, is just quite competent, and I think Margot would survive. Again, she'd come out with some hot takes, but she would probably survive. But then I just don't, I'm really sorry, MBS. Maybe this is really unfair, but I just don't necessarily trust him to keep her alive for the weekend. Fair. I think he just had I don't think he'd feel any pressure.
Yeah, fine. Low stakes.
Yeah, he'd just leave her.
Okay.
It makes me quite sad, actually.
Well, let us know in the comments if you agree. Who would you leave your pet or child with? You can up the stakes to child if you'd like. It gave the segment a different tone to the one I intended. If you want a set of World Leaderboard magnets, you can head to our store right now and pick up a set either for yourself or as a fun Christmas gift. The base set includes the arrows you need to make your leaderboard, plus 10 World Leader faces. And then there's also the European expansion pack, which adds an additional 10 European leaders. If you head to the store right now and use code LEADERS at checkout when buying both packs, then you will get 25% off both. The link's in the description and it ends soon.
I cannot get out of my head the image of Vladimir Putin rocking my child. It's just...
You did that.
It's just uncanny.
It could have been a dog or a cat or something.
Don't have a dog or a cat.
Yeah, but you could have imagined...
It's a classic mistake. Don't do that pre-baby.
What do you mean? Don't have dogs or cats?
People they get a dog or cat to see if they can do it.
But they forget their dog lives for 15 years.
Exactly. And then you have a newborn and a puppy.
Yeah, fair. Okay.
Sorry.
Good advice. People are skipping over this segment. They're missing gold. Okay, let's move to the audience suggestion. Every week, we let you choose one person who's either moved or added to the board based on your comments on the previous video. The most liked suggestion on the last video was Christopher Luxon, Prime Minister of New Zealand, who is a new addition to the board. So we won't be moving him, we'll be adding him either to the lightly positive or the lightly negative section. Rory, is he a winner or a loser?
I think he has to be a loser. He is not very popular in New Zealand. There was a recent poll that gave his sort of government I think it was a 3.9 out of 10 rating, which I think is the lowest that particular poll had
unorthodox way of doing this
polls. Strange.
3.9 out of 10.
Sometimes when you Google other countries and they give you that's how we do it, and you're like, really?
Yeah. Why not just do a star rating at that point?
Yeah. So 3.9 out of 10, not great. And his party, the National Party, which is sort of centre-right, their sort of main centre-right party, has, since the 2023 election, has just basically been on a continuous decline, and it's now behind the Labour Party.
Really?
Which is, not great. And they have another election next year. Like Australia, they just rattle through them. I think it's a 3-year sort of rotation.
Election cycle.
Which, I don't know, I think think that's too regular, too quick. So he runs a coalition government, and the other two parties in his coalition, one is New Zealand First, which is sort of populist right wing kind of one.
Yeah, they sound it.
And then another one, I don't know if it's ACT or ACT, but I feel like it'd be ACT, but I'm going to say ACT.
Okay.
Sort of libertarian-ish party are both sort of fighting with each other. And I think part of the issue is that when you have those elections so soon after the last one, like coalition governments always end up fighting, and that fighting always happens usually closer to an election as they start to try and make themselves look more, distance themselves from other parties and make themselves more appealing. And when you have 3 years between elections, that's just going to start really soon, which isn't great. But yeah, so he's a loser of the week for me.
Zach?
Yes, I think also loser of the week. Although I would say I share your intuitions about 3-year election cycles. It does seem to work surprisingly well for both those countries, right? Also, I think tough for Chris Luxon living in the shadow of Jacinda Ardern forever.
Yeah. She's our one and only New Zealander.
Exactly.
Name another one. You just said his name and I've already forgotten.
Jermaine Clement.
Who?
Taika Waititi.
Brett McKenzie.
Yeah.
Who's Jermaine Clement?
Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Anyway.
It wasn't a serious bit. I was going to say you couldn't name any.
But... that wasn't funny, was it? The only other thing is that, and we talked about this in the editorial, obviously, is that New Zealand is seeing its highest rate of emigration since 2012. And they are all off to Australia. A majority of those emigrating are moving to Australia. And that is a function of the fact that the Australian economy is just doing better than the New Zealand economy. And sort of for related reasons, the New Zealand currency is weaker than the Australian currency.
Much cheaper to live. Well, cheaper relative to wages to live in Australia. Better jobs, better universities.
There you go.
And everyone's off.
Yeah.
And just more people.
New
Zealand's tiny.
Yeah.
It's tiny.
No offense, New Zealand, but I'm sure you're lovely.
How small is it, do you know?
4 million?
4 million is small.
I think
wow.
New Zealand is like 4 or 5 and Australia's about 20. They're both pretty small.
Yeah.
But
that's...
New Zealand is like a small European country.
Yeah.
Like what? How big's Latvia?
Just throwing questions. Name New Zealand. How big's Latvia?
It's an unorthodox hosting style.
I can't remember whether it was an Australian leader or a New Zealand leader who said this like years ago when asked about people moving from one country to the other. I assume it was the leader of New Zealand. They said something like, when people move from New Zealand to Australia, it raises the average IQ of both countries. Or the other way around. I can't remember which way around.
What?
Basically, he's saying that anyone who chooses to leave New Zealand for Australia is subpar, but they're still going to be better than the average, Aussie.
I mean, they got such high IQs, I didn't even get the joke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we covered that.
Okay.
Yeah.
He is unpopular and leads no one.
That's rough.
It is rough. And every YouTuber's clocked onto it. So many YouTube videos at the moment about everyone leaving New Zealand.
Didn't realise it was such a hot topic.
Really is.
Emigration is like, people do quite like emigration videos.
Yeah.
We could do a couple of those.
Maybe we should do an Australia-New Zealand one. Just fully steal Wendover's video. We're coming for you. Okay. Speaking of losers, let's move to our losers of the week. Zach, who is your loser this week?
My loser of the week is German Chancellor Friedrich Merz.
Not trusted with your child.
No. Well, no, quite
moderately trusted.
But not with the German economy.
Oh,
there we go.
That's good.
Before we get... Cameron, have I got news for you? I think before we get into the wider economic woes that Germany's facing, there have been a couple of things this past week that have been pretty bad for him. So I think yesterday, again, recording this on Wednesday, he held a non-binding ballot amongst CDU MPs to see if he had support for controversial pension reforms. And basically something like, I think 10 MPs voted against it and a further 4 abstained or something like that. And given that his grand coalition only has a 12-seat majority in the chamber.
No good.
The second reason is that, again, I think that might also happen yesterday, he was having a bilateral meeting with Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk, which was supposed to be about Polish-German military cooperation, but was marred by the ongoing dispute over reparations, right, which the Polish government keeps on insisting on. So I think that is yet more strain in that relationship, which I think some people had hoped a couple of years ago would be the sort of like new central axis within a militarized Europe, and it really hasn't turned out like that. It's also worth noting that Tusk under a lot of domestic political pressure, right? So he can't really soften his stance on that particular issue. And then I think third and finally, last week, but again, it falls within the World Leaderboard window, he sent a letter to the EU asking them to, I think, basically dilute the current target of banning all combustion engine vehicles by 2035. I think that I'm putting that as a bad thing because I think sort of whatever you think about that policy, it just suggests that Merz is out of keeping with the sort of wider European consensus. And that is a bit of a tough one for him. It's also the sort of thing that's going to go down badly with, well, I think most other European leaders, right? I think even if you have sort of hesitations about that particular target, this way of doing European policy where we set ambitious targets and then dilute them down in the future is the worst of all possible worlds, right? You should probably just not set the target in the first place because you just end up with a very unpredictable business environment, which mars confidence. I think it's also worth saying that, you know, the Germany's automobile-related woes are mostly down to the fact that sort of German incumbents aren't very good at transitioning to electric vehicles, and they're being usurped by these Chinese upstarts. And I don't know personally if, you know, watering down those particular targets is the best way of encouraging Volkswagen, etc., to modernize. So yeah, I think those are the three reasons in the past week that he's going down. But then I do think more generally his own approval ratings have slipped. His party is now behind the AfD in most national polls, and the German economy is still stumbling. So despite that massive fiscal bazooka that we all heard about when he, at the very, very start of his tenure, when he watered down the debt brake in order to spend loads of money, that hasn't really, it doesn't look like it's going to pay off. And he keeps talking about these autumn reforms, but most of the reforms have been pretty minor. And there's quite a lot of frustration amongst the business community that he is apparently using some of that newfound fiscal firepower for cheap tax cuts and giveaways, as opposed to the much needed reforms. No, it isn't. And I do think there's a more general lesson here. And by the way, anyone who's interested, there's a great paper by John Springford over at CER about exactly this, which is that quite a lot of the time, I think that establishment politicians are tempted to basically use short-term economic policies, what you might call populist economic policies, to fight back against the populists. And invariably, not invariably, but most of the time it doesn't work. And that you would be better off making some better long-term decisions and then hoping that they pay electoral dividends by the time the next federal election rolls around. I mean, it's obviously difficult because Germany has a whole load of state-level elections coming up next year, for instance, that he'll be preparing for. But I think you see something similar to Keir Starmer, right? In an unwillingness to accept short-term pain in exchange for what should be long-term gain, and unwillingness to invest more generally. And that clearly doesn't seem to be a winning strategy. So
Friedrich Merz there moving down from lightly negative to fully negative. Rory, our last person for today is another new addition from you.
We're packing out the board.
It's crazy. Who is your loser this week?
My loser this week is... we'll see.
Oh, I don't think you know how to say it.
I did look it up. It's Rosen Zhelyazkov, who of course is the Prime Minister of Bulgaria.
Of course.
He is my loser this week because his government withdrew its proposed budget, I think just today, after a few days or the weekend of mass protests in Bulgaria against particularly tax hikes that were in the budget, but sort of wider anti-corruption protests as well. Some news outlets have labeled them Gen Z protests. I don't know how accurate that is. I feel like every protest now is just going to be called a Gen Z protest. But
you've played your part in propagating that.
I mean, but yeah, so withdrew the budget, so they're going to have to go back to the drawing board on that and work out how to sort of come up with something that pleases people while still, I guess, generating some more revenue. Bulgaria is entering the Eurozone, I think on the 1st of January, so very soon. So this is sort of a bad sign that it's a minority coalition that doesn't have, the kind of political authority that you need to be able to have that like fiscal control that you're going to need to be in the Eurozone. Because it took years for Bulgaria to finally get accepted in, a lot of convincing of other European countries. So it's not a great sign. The sort of anti-corruption angle to the protests is also interesting because his minority coalition relies on another party in parliament, which is run by a guy called Delian Peevski, I think, who, I don't know if I should comment on someone's looks, but if you imagine like a sort of mafia oligarch kind of guy, he does fit the bill quite well. Yeah. And that's sort of, he is a bit of an oligarch and a bit of a corrupt guy. It's not just me saying, he's sanctioned by the US and the UK for corruption related reasons. So not great. But because the government relies on that, obviously feeds into this idea that the government and the sort of state is this mafia state, which has been a sort of perception for quite some time in Bulgaria. So they haven't managed to shake that. I think it's the second most corrupt EU member state behind Hungary.
Wow.
So not great. The president of Bulgaria has said that the government should resign in order to have new elections. And I think that would be something like the 7th or the 8th election they've had in like 4 or 5 years.
Crazy.
And, none of those elections have solved anything. They just keep having these really unstable coalitions that don't last very long. And this would just be yet another of those. So, that might happen, but I can't imagine that would be the sort of way out of this persistent crisis. So Rosen Zhelyazkov, he's on the board.
He is. Sounds like you're also putting an axe over his head almost immediately.
Yeah.
He's being added to the board in the lightly negative section. What, if any, hope does Bulgaria have then? If they're rattling through prime ministers and governments and elections and no one seems to solve it and the president wants him out, and they're corrupt and there are all these other things, is there any solution anyone's presented?
Well, it's a tough job to have for me to try and fix that, but
not as difficult as being prime minister.
That's true.
You're being humble here. Go on, fix it.
I honestly don't know, but I guess having a system where you do just have an election every sort of couple of years, if you can cobble together some kind of government and get some things done, it's something, I suppose. This government lasted longer than some of the previous ones. They had 2 elections in 1 year, I think, in 2023 possibly. So it's not as bad as it could be.
Sure.
But I no idea how to solve it. Sorry about that.
They were watching. They were all watching. All of Bulgaria.
Yeah.
Latvia, by the way, 1.86 million people.
It's not much, is it?
Not that many.
No.
Okay, let's end with our ultimate winner and loser of the week. Okay, so to close us out, each week we vote for our ultimate winner and our ultimate loser of the week. And if we reach a consensus on those decisions, then those people move up an additional or down an additional spot. Let's start with our ultimate winner. Your options are Milei or the Pope. Rory, who's your ultimate winner of the week?
I have gone for Milei. I was tempted by the Pope, but unless there's like a massive scandal, it's hard for the Pope to kind to not win.
And the Vatican's not known for scandal.
And he's but so I think he's had a good week. But the thing about Milei, I didn't know about this the sort of defections that had helped.
It's actually gone quite under the radar. So, I only know about it because there's a Polymarket bet on it. I haven't put money on it, but and it's obviously 99% that it was going to be the Peronists, and then all of a sudden fell apart.
Could have won big.
So that's pretty good for him. He's my winner.
I'm also going for the same
because you can't beat him.
Yeah, exactly.
Rory said it, and you're like,
yeah.
Yes, Rory.
But in general, it's a pretty good idea to copy Rory.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't know. Pope. Mainly just because it's more fun.
He's got God on his side.
Yeah. He's got God on his side.
Yeah.
And 150,000 people.
If I go to hell for that, I'm going to be grumpy.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so no one moves again on that one. Our losers, though, you can choose Christopher Luxon, Mertz, or Zhelyazkov. Good luck spelling that one if you want to go for it. Rory, who's your ultimate loser of the week?
I have gone for Zhelyazkov. It's pretty bad.
If even you can't solve it,
then it's bad. I reckon I could sort Germany out though, so I can't move Mertz down for that. But yeah. New Zealand solvable, but Bulgaria no
idea. Zach, who'd you go for?
I'm going for the same. I just called him Mr. Bulgaria, but I also now realise it sounds like he's in like a Miss World competition. And that is making me giggle a little bit.
It's funny. I also went for Zhelyazkov.
Yeah.
As a consensus, Zhelyazkov moves down an additional spot on the board.
Mr. Bulgaria.
That's all we have time for in our Bald Man special. Join us again next week for more losers, more
they know
winners.
why.
They're all bald. All the movers are bald.
No, they're not all bald.
Pretty much.
Millet's basically offsets.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Carbon offsets there.
Add carbon. Good. All right.
Okay, join us again next week for more winners, more losers. And also make sure to comment who you want to see us talk about in the audience section next week. We'll be back then. Stupid.
I can't believe anyone watches this.
It's a shame the audience don't see this version of the board because Christopher Luxon looks great with a sort of yellow halo.
Yeah.
He does. There you go.
Maybe I can see your hair.
Thank you.
Okay, so to close the show.
This has been a shit episode.